Cardiovascular system 3, cardiac cycle. The cardiac cycle includes all the mechanical and electrical events that occur during one heartbeat. In mechanical terms, it consists of all heart chamber undergoing a relaxation phase or diastole and a contraction phase or systole. During diastole, the chambers fill with blood. During systole, the ventricle contract and expel blood into the aorta and pulmonary arteries. The diastolic phase is approximately twice as long as the systolic phase. This blood flow is controlled by pressure change. So pressure change reflects the alternating contraction and relaxation of the heart. Blood moves along a pressure gradient from higher to low pressure through any available opening. So pressure change causes the heart valve to open and close, which keep blood flowing into forward direction. And when we talk about cardiac cycle, we usually call AV valve. So AV valve is a mitral valve as well as tricuspid valve. Phase 1, ventricular filling, AV, so atrioventricular valves open. The pressure inside the heart chamber rise and fall during each cardiac cycle. When the atria are relaxed, blood from the venous circulation fill the atria. About 70% of blood filling the atria during this time passively flow directly through the mitral and tricuspid valve or AV valve into the ventricle. When the atria contract, the atria push the remaining 30% of their volume into the ventricle. During ventricular diastole, the pressure inside the ventricle is low, allowing the ventricle to passively fill with blood. As atrial contract provides the final filling volume of blood, the pressure inside the ventricle increases slightly. Phase 2, there are two major things that happen. So first, isovolumetric contraction. So ventricle contract and intraventricular pressure rise. So closing AV valve and semiannular valve is already closed. So briefly, ventricle are completely closed chamber. And ventricle ejection, semiannular valve finally open because rising ventricular pressure forces semiannular valve open. Blood is ejected from the heart and to the lung. Phase 3 is isovolumetric relaxation. So both AV valve and semiannular valve close. So ventricle relax and ventricle pressure drop, blood backflow closing semiannular valve, and ventricle are totally closed up again. Meanwhile, the atria have a filling with blood, so when atria pressure exceed ventricular pressure, AV valve open and ventricle filling phase 1 begin again. So cardiac cycle is both atrium pump at the same time and both ventricle pump at the same time. So this is why we just call AV valve or semiannular valves. We do not need to call valve separately. So first, phase 1 is a ventricular filling, and next one, phase 2 is isovolumetric contraction, as well as phase 2 is a ventricular ejection, isovolumetric relaxation. And return to the phase 1 is ventricular filling, right? So this is we can see the data is oxygen consumption, and this is like a ventilation data, right? You'll see this data next Wednesday, right? Virtual lab. And this is EKG, so we can get EKG during exercise. So if you see, is here there are polar heart rate data is here, but see, we cannot get a really good data, is right? So because during exercise, is measuring heart rate is not really easy, so we can get really good data using EKG. So this is EKG, and see is our TA is attached 10 electrode is around her chest. So this signal go to the this machine is EKG machine, so we can see EKG. So this is EKG. If depolarization reach threshold, the contractile cell in turn generate action potential. So first depolarization, then repolarization. So after depolarization, the cardiac myofiber in contractile cells slide over each other, resulting muscle contraction. So it means after depolarization, muscle contract, and after repolarization, this muscle fiber is relaxed. Does it make sense? This is a cardiac conduction system, right? So cardiac conduct system is different than is a skeletal muscle fiber. So skeletal muscle is contract because the CNS, central nervous system, sending signal to the our muscle fiber. But heart has own CNS. It's not really CNS, but heart has own signal system. So first is SA node, sinoatrial node or SA node. This is kind of pacemaker. It has fast spontaneous depolarization than any other area. And SA node is make action potential and sending signal to the AB node. So AB node got a sending signal, so from its atria to sending signal to the like a ventricle. Yeah, it's the first bundle of His. Yeah, Dr. His found this bundle. And bundle branches, it has left and right. And Purkinje fiber. So this is terminal branch. This order. This kind of a conduction system we can attach at the electrocardiogram, right? So if you see there are P wave, its P wave represent atrial depolarization. But how about after action potential, right? Is a depolarization followed by repolarization, is right? So P wave represent atrial depolarization. So somewhere here we must see is atrial repolarization, but after depolarization, this signal to the ventricle. So ventricular depolarization is here. So because we have a ventricular depolarization, so we couldn't really see atrial repolarization because ventricular depolarization is a much stronger signal, right? So after ventricular depolarization, we can see is a ventricular repolarization. So does it make sense? So atrial depolarization and atrial repolarization, but we cannot see because it's hidden by is a ventricular depolarization. And after ventricular depolarization, we have ventricular repolarization is here. Intrinsic conduction system, I'll talk about more EKG with intrinsic conduction system. The SA node spontaneously depolarizes about every 0.8 second. Okay, every 0.8 second is make depolarization, right? So action potential. So how about can you convert beat per minute, like heart rate, like 80 beat per minute, right? BPM. So to do this one, right, I can put here 1 beat per 0.8 second. And to cancel out second, I can put 60 second and 1 minute. This is equivalent, right? So cancel out, cancel out. Oh, 75 beat per minute. So if SA node make depolarization, our heart rate around 75 beat per minute. This depolarization spread through the atria by the internodal pathway, causing contraction of atria. And P wave represent this atria depolarization. After depolarization, we must see atrial repolarization, but we already talked about, right? So atrial repolarization cannot be seen occur during ventricular depolarization because ventricular depolarization is a QRS. This complex is really strong, so we cannot see atrial repolarization. And why QRS look like this? Oh, Dr. Gon is here. So there are three wave, right? But there are three vector. So during ventricular contraction, there are three vector. Is number two is a Q wave, see this is away from this electrode, so negative. And number 3, this is the R wave, right, is close to electrode, so it has a positive. But number 4, this vector is far away from this electrode, so it's a negative. So this is why we have QRX complex. And QRX complex, this is the ventricular depolarization. So next one is T wave. This is the ventricular repolarization. At that time, ventricle relax. Cardiac arrhythmia. So this is a resting heart rate. If your resting heart rate below 60, we call bradycardia. If someone's heart rate above 100, even does not exercise, but the heart rate is above 100, we call tachycardia. Both are disease. But if you are really trained athlete, your heart rate can be lower than even around 40 bpm. That case, trained athlete is no problem. But someone do not train, has resting heart rate below 60, we call bradycardia. This is EKG. Using EKG and using QRX complex, we can figure out somebody's heart rate. The heart rate is 300 divided by the number of large square between the QRX complex. So how about if you see, yeah, it's here, right? So right now it's 2 QRX, is one box. So 300 divided one box, heart rate 300. And second box, so 2 box. So if you see QRX is here, so this person's heart rate 150 and 100. 75, 60, 43, 37. But we couldn't see QRS yet, is right? It means this heart rate is really slow, so we call bradycardia. How about this heart rate? Only one box, so heart rate is around 300. So I believe this is not like a human's heart rate. I believe this is kind of like a mouse and rat's heart rate. So animal or blue whale heart rate only 6. Yeah, human is 60 to 100 is right. And horse 38, rabbit 205, rat 420, mouse 670. Wow. And hummingbird is 1260. And octopus even has 3 hearts, right? It's very is interesting, is right? Cardiac cycle, we already talked about. This is one heartbeat, it's locked up, is right? Diastole, relaxation phase. Systole, contraction phase. And stroke volume, this is important. Stroke volume is blood ejected from heart per contraction, 60 to 80 milliliter per beat. And EDV mean end diastolic volume, so when ventricle is filled. In ESV is end systolic volume when blood left in. So stroke volume and or SV mean is EDV minus ESV. Does it make sense? Is it right? EDV minus ESV, right? So blood ejected from heart per contraction. And heart rate, the unit is beat per minute. Stroke volume divided by EDB, that is ejection fraction, is average is around 60%. So at rest, 60% is average. Thus, 60% of blood in ventricle is ejected. But how about 59% and 61%? How can we classify? Even 1%, we can say below average or above average, even 1%. So this is important, right? Like 61% above average, 59% below average. And cardiac output or Q, total blood pump by heart per minute. So to calculate cardiac output, heart rate multiplied by stroke volume, that is cardiac output. This is most important, right? Most important thing in exercise physiology. How can we increase cardiac output? We can control heart rate, or we can increase stroke volume, right? Average is around 4.8 to 6.4 liter per minute. So this kind of like unit is important, right? Cardiac output is liter per minute. Stroke volume is a milliliter, right? And ejection fraction is a percentage. This one just I want to show you how mitochondria is important. This is mitochondria. So during muscle contraction, Or during relaxation, we must put calcium ion to put sarcoplasmic reticulum. To do this one, we need ATP. Or sodium potassium pump is important for, did you remember, resting membrane potential is right. So at rest, we need a sodium potassium pump to get a resting membrane potential. To activate it, we need ATP, is right. So during muscle contraction, we need ATP. Even relaxation, we need ATP, is right. So which one has a responsibility? Is mitochondria. So how mitochondria resynthesize ATP? They need oxygen. Doesn't make sense. So how can we get oxygen? From blood, is right. So this is right stroke volume, especially cardiac output, stroke volume multiply heart rate. This value is so important to get a lot of blood to the muscle fiber. So this blood deliver is oxygen, right, and deliver CO2 too, right. So deliver oxygen to the is our muscle fiber, is right. So to send blood is really important. How can we calculate that amount? That is cardiac output. So we must know how to calculate stroke volume, ejection fraction, and cardiac output, right? So this is kind of atrium, right? So, and the diastolic volume is 100 milliliter, and end-stage volume is 440 milliliter mean, right? The difference 60 milliliter is a kind of stroke volume, is right? So stroke volume is here, and stroke volume divided by end-diastolic volume. This is ejection fraction, is right? And stroke volume multiply heart rate. This is a cardiac output. This is most important, right? This blood go to the our exercising muscle or every part of our human body. However, let's do some calculation. This is kind of like a quiz, right? If EDB 120 milliliter, how about ESV and 45 milliliter? So how about stroke volume? How much? And next one is stroke volume is 50. I'm sorry, is end-stage volume is 50 and stroke volume 60. So how much EDB? And EDB is 115 and stroke volume 80. How about how much ESV? This is very simple, right? So first, please pause and calculate and watch again this video. First, 75. Second, EDB is 110 and ESB 35. Does it make sense? Okay. How about let's calculate, right, stroke volume and ejection fraction and classify ejection fraction. Stella weight 55 kilogram has an EDB of 105 milliliter per beat and ESV of 40 milliliter per beat. She is 152 centimeter tall. So what is her stroke volume, ejection fraction, and classify ejection fraction? So actually, we just talk about stroke volume, ejection fraction, is right, and classifying ejection fraction. That case, we do not really need to know is body weight and height, is right. So just using EDB and ESB. So please calculate. So how about stroke volume? Yeah, stroke volume is per beat, is right, and ejection fraction. Does it make sense? 62%. Could you classify? Yeah, above average. Even 1 or 2% is higher than 60. This is above average. So next one. Yeah, please pause this video and answer and watch again. Yes, so stroke volume is 73 and EDB is 120. So ESV, right? So ESV, how can we calculate? 120 and we don't know and equal 73. So 47 milliliter. This is ESV, right? And 73 divided by 120. This is stroke volume, is right? And equal 61%. So how about 61% mean? Yeah, even 1% is above average. Next one, what would one average ejection fraction in average? Did you remember? So 60% is below 60, below average. Above 60 is even 1% is above average. But if you exercise, even higher than equal 75%, right? See, this is really high. It's 15% easily increase. So if you feel tired, it means you need more blood, is right? You need more like oxygen from your blood. So that case, you had better exercise. Many times, if you feel tired, you want to take a rest, but you had better exercise. And cardiac output, the equation is cardiac output is Q is heart rate multiplies stroke volume, right? So how about like this? If your heart rate is 80 and stroke volume 60, that means 4,800 milliliter per minute, but 1,000 milliliter equal 1 liter, so 4.8 liter per minute. Yeah, is right. So calculate like this: 80 beat per minute, 60 milliliter per beat, so 4,800 milliliter per minute. But usually this number is too big, so we just divide by 1,000. So 4.8 liter per minute. So this is the answer. This is cardiac output. Does it make sense? And how about calculate your cardiac output? But we don't know it's a stroke volume, so please measure your heart rate right now and multiply 60 milliliter. So stroke volume, average stroke volume is around 60 milliliter. So you can calculate. Yeah, you don't know your beat per minute is right, but how about if you already calculate? Yeah, put the your beat per minute, this number, and divide by 1,000. So this number. So this is your cardiac output. How about if someone's heart rate is 185 and stroke volume is 100 milliliter per beat? So please calculate cardiac output. 185 beat per minute multiply 100 meter per beat, because this stroke volume is right. So this amount of number, but too big, so divide by 1000, so 18.5 liter per minute. But as you see, this is the heart rate 185, right? Stroke volume is higher. It means, oh, this is during exercise. So during exercise, you can get like a blood this amount, 18.5 liter per minute, right? So it's really good. How about calculate again? If someone can increase heart rate 195, wow, and even stroke volume is 110, so please calculate cardiac output. Yeah, 21.45 liter per minute. So if you are trained and if you can exercise hard enough, right, you can get that amount of blood, yeah, to your exercising muscle. Oh, I think it look like this is resting, right? 75 beat per minute and stroke volume 65 meter per beat, meter per beat, right? So please calculate cardiac output and liter. How even a little bit more difficult? Oh, okay, okay, I already put. Yeah, it's a little bit difficult. Yeah, next one. Michael weight is 68 kilogram and height 178 centimeter. So walk 1 mile daily